The phone call that changed everything came at precisely 9:43 on a Tuesday morning, when Emma Turner was up to her elbows in pastry dough. She wiped flour from her hands, leaving ghostly handprints on her apron as she fumbled for her cell. "Emma speaking," she answered, tucking the phone between her ear and shoulder as she continued kneading. "Emma, thank goodness you picked up." The voice belonged to Diane Powell, her old college roommate. "I'm in a complete crisis mode. The planning committee for our 10-year reunion is falling apart. Melissa just quit something about her twins and a move to Seattle, and we're less than 2 months away." Emma glanced at the half-completed order forms for her bakery. Business was finally picking up after 3 years of struggle. "Di, I'm swamped with the shop right now, please, Em. You organized every college event worth attending. You're the only one who can pull this together now. We've got the venue booked at the Grand Peninsula Hotel, but everything else is chaos. I'll owe you for life." Emma sighed, knowing she was already caving. She had always been pathologically incapable of saying no to a friend in need. "Send me the files. I'll look them over tonight." "You're an absolute lifesaver. The reunion committee meets tomorrow night. I'll text you the details." After hanging up, Emma returned to her dough, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. She hadn't thought much about college lately or about him. Hudson Irving. The name still caused a small ache behind her ribs. Her first true love, the one who'd left 10 years ago to find himself in Europe, promising to return. 3 unanswered emails, and 2 months later, she'd accepted that some promises were made to be broken. The next evening, Emma found herself in a conference room at the Grand Peninsula Hotel, surrounded by eager committee members trying to make sense of disorganized spreadsheets and half-formed plans. "So we have no confirmed entertainment, a caterer who's threatening to back out, and a slideshow that's currently just blank frames," Emma confirmed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Diane nodded grimly. "But we do have one piece of good news. One of our classmates is covering a significant portion of the costs. Anonymous donation." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Anonymous? That's generous. Apparently they've done very well for themselves. Anyway, we're thinking time capsule as our theme, revisiting our college years while celebrating how far we've come." By midnight, Emma had created an action plan and assigned tasks to each committee member. As they filed out, Diane lingered behind. "There's one more thing," she said hesitantly. "The guest list. I didn't want to mention it in front of everyone, but Hudson Irving RSVP'd, yes." Emma froze. "Hudson, he's coming. I know you two had that whole thing back then. It wasn't a thing, Di. We were together for 3 years. Right, sorry, I just thought you should know. He's apparently some big shot now in the shipping industry, international business mogul or something." Emma forced a casual shrug. It was a decade ago, ancient history. But that night, as she stared at her bedroom ceiling, memories flooded back. Hudson's deep laugh. His habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she spoke. The way he'd kiss her forehead before they fell asleep. The devastation when his promised return never materialized. Over the next several weeks, Emma threw herself into planning the reunion with the same perfectionism she applied to her bakery creations. She negotiated with vendors, designed elaborate decorations, and created a signature cocktail menu that referenced inside jokes from their college days. 3 days before the reunion, Emma was at the hotel for a final walkthrough when her phone rang with an unknown number. "Emma Turner. This is Sandra from the Grand Peninsula Hotel Management. There's been a request regarding the reunion. One of your attendees has asked about using our rooftop garden for a special presentation during the event." "The rooftop garden," Emma frowned. "That wasn't in our contract. The gentleman has offered to cover the additional expense. He was quite insistent on speaking with the event planner directly. If you could call him back." "What gentleman?" "A Mr. Irving. He said you'd know him." Emma's heart skipped painfully. "He wants me to call him. He's actually in the hotel now if you'd prefer to meet in person." "He's staying in the penthouse suite." Of course he was. The once carefree boy who'd lived on ramen and student loans was now casually staying in suites that cost more than her monthly rent. After ending the call, Emma debated what to do. Professional pride won out. This was her event to manage, regardless of who was making requests. 20 minutes later, she stood outside the penthouse suite, smoothing her navy dress and wishing she'd taken time to reapply her lipstick. She knocked firmly. The door opened, and there he was. 10 years had transformed the lanky college student into a man with broader shoulders and a more refined presence. His sandy hair was shorter, more professionally styled, but his eyes were the same warm hazel that had once looked at her with such tenderness. Emma. The way he said her name soft, almost reverential, sent a shiver down her spine. "Hello, Hudson. I understand you wanted to discuss the rooftop garden." His smile faltered slightly at her businesslike tone. "Yes, please come in." The suite was breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Papers were spread across a glass dining table, suggesting he'd been working. "Would you like something to drink?" he offered. "No, thank you. I'm on a tight schedule today." Hudson nodded, gesturing toward the sofa. As they sat, carefully maintaining distance between them, he studied her face. "You look wonderful, Em. The years have been kind. Thank you. You seem to be doing well yourself." She nodded toward the luxurious surroundings. "This," he waved dismissively, "just a room." "A penthouse suite is hardly just a room, Hudson. Sandra mentioned you're interested in using the rooftop garden. That wasn't in our original plan." "I know, and I apologize for the last-minute request. I thought it might be a nice addition for a short speech I've been asked to give. Something about inspiring success stories." He made air quotes and rolled his eyes self-deprecatingly. "I didn't know you were on the program." Diane reached out a few weeks ago. Of course she had. Emma made a mental note to have a frank discussion with her friend about communication. "I can arrange it," Emma said, "but we'll need to adjust the timeline. The garden requires additional setup time." "I'll cover any extra costs, of course." "That's not necessary. The anonymous donor has been quite generous." A strange expression crossed his face. About that donor, Emma's phone chimed with a reminder. "I'm sorry, I have a vendor meeting in 15 minutes. Email me the details of what you need for the garden presentation, and I'll make it happen." She stood abruptly, needing to escape before old feelings could resurface. Hudson rose as well, moving toward her with a tentative step. "Em, I was hoping we might have a chance to talk about what happened." "After all this time, Hudson," she interrupted, "I'm here as the event planner, that's all." His face fell, but he nodded. "Of course, professional boundaries." "I understand." As she left, Emma tried to ignore the whisper of regret in her chest. She'd spent years rebuilding her life after he'd disappeared. Her bakery, Sweet Foundations, was finally becoming successful. She couldn't risk letting Hudson Irving back into her heart. The night of the reunion arrived with merciful speed. Emma arrived early, dressed in a sleek emerald gown that complemented her auburn hair. She checked every detail one last time before guests began arriving. The ballroom transformed as former classmates filled the space, exclaiming over the elaborate decorations, display cases of college memorabilia, photo projections showing campus scenes, and delicate string lights that mimicked the constellation visible the night of their graduation. "This is incredible," Diane gushed, appearing at Emma's side in a sequined blue dress. "You've outdone yourself." "Everything seems to be running smoothly," Emma agreed, sipping champagne as she surveyed the room. "Have you seen Hudson yet?" Diane asked, not so subtly scanning the crowd. "No, and I'd rather not discuss. Oh my God, there he is. And Emma, he is staring right at you." Despite herself, Emma turned. Hudson stood across the room, impeccable in a tailored black suit. Their eyes met, and the noise of the party seemed to fade. He smiled, that same half-smile that had once made her feel like the only woman in the world, and began making his way toward her. "Ladies," he greeted them, his voice warm. "Diane, wonderful to see you again." Diane beamed. "Hudson, I was just telling everyone about your shipping empire." So modest in your RSVP businessman hardly covers it, Emma couldn't help herself. Shipping empire? Hudson looked uncomfortable. It's not really an empire, he's being modest, Diane interjected. Irving International basically controls shipping routes across 3 continents. Fortune 500, private jets, the works. Emma stared at him, remembering the broke graduate student who'd stressed over student loans. Quite a change from the guy who used to split ramen packets to make them last longer. Some things haven't changed, he said softly, his eyes never leaving her face. Before Emma could respond, the hotel manager appeared at her elbow. Miss Turner, we have a small situation with the audio equipment for the rooftop presentation. Excuse me, Emma said, grateful for the interruption. Duty calls. The next hour passed in a blur of troubleshooting and managing the event. Emma barely had time to think about Hudson until she found herself on the rooftop garden, supervising the setup for his mysterious presentation. The space was magical. String lights twinkled overhead, potted flowers created intimate conversation nooks, and the city skyline provided a breathtaking backdrop. As staff arranged chairs, Emma walked to the edge, gazing out at the glittering metropolis. Beautiful view. She didn't need to turn to know Hudson had joined her. It is. I remember you always said you wanted to see the city from above. Emma glanced at him, surprised he'd remembered such a small detail. I did eventually. My apartment is on the 23rd floor. The bakery's doing well then. Sweet foundations. You know about my bakery? Hudson slid his hands into his pockets, looking almost sheepish. I may have ordered from there a few times since I've been back in town. You've been in town before tonight, for about 6 months, West Coast headquarters. Emma felt a flash of annoyance. 6 months, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, he admitted, after how things ended. Ended? Emma gave a humorless laugh. Things didn't end, Hudson, you disappeared. I wrote to you. 3 emails in 2 months is hardly staying in touch. I sent dozens of emails, he said, frowning, and letters. When you stopped responding, I thought you'd moved on. Emma stared at him. What are you talking about? I never received any letters, and after those first few emails, nothing. Confusion crossed Hudson's face. That's not possible. I wrote to you every week for nearly a year. Before Emma could process this revelation, the hotel manager appeared. We're ready when you are, Mr. Irving. Hudson nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on Emma. We need to finish this conversation. Please stay for the presentation. Guests began filtering onto the rooftop, exclaiming over the beautiful setting. Emma found herself standing at the back as Hudson took position near a covered easel. What had happened to those letters, to those emails? Had a decade of hurt been built on a misunderstanding? Thank you all for coming tonight, Hudson began, his confident voice carrying across the garden. When Diane asked me to share my success story, I was reluctant. Success is subjective, and mine came with significant costs. The crowd quieted, intrigued. 10 years ago, I left for Europe with dreams of adventure but also with promises to return to someone special. His eyes found Emma's. Due to circumstances I'm still unraveling, that promise was broken. Communication failed, assumptions were made, and 2 lives diverged. Emma felt her cheeks warm as several curious heads turned in her direction. I found success in business, building Irving International from a small freight operation to a global logistics company. But true success isn't measured in wealth or corporate achievements. He moved to the covered easel and pulled away the cloth, revealing a large rendering of a building. This is the future headquarters of the Irving Foundation, dedicated to supporting small business entrepreneurs. And its first initiative will be a culinary incubator program. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Emma stared at the rendering, recognizing the architectural style. It was remarkably similar to a sketch she'd once shown Hudson of her dream bakery. The anonymous donation funding tonight's event came from the foundation, Hudson continued. It seemed fitting that my first public announcement would be here, among the people who knew me before, especially the person who inspired it all. After his presentation, Guests swarmed Hudson with questions and congratulations. Emma slipped away, needing space to process everything. She found herself in the hotel's garden courtyard, sitting on a stone bench beneath flowering trees. "There you are." Hudson's voice broke the silence as he approached. "I've been looking everywhere." "That was quite a presentation." "Too much?" he asked, sitting beside her with a careful distance between them. The part about the broken promises and miscommunication was a bit public. Hudson winced. "I'm sorry." "Subtlety was never my strong suit." "No, it wasn't." Despite herself, Emma smiled faintly. "You once proposed we skip class by standing on a cafeteria table and announcing you had urgent kissing business with me," he laughed, the familiar sound warming her. "I'd forgotten about that." "I hadn't." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words. "What happened, Hudson, with the emails, the letters?" he sighed deeply. "I've been piecing it together. Remember, my old email account was through the university system." "Yes, student Parkeredu. When I graduated, they deactivated it after a certain period. I assumed you'd received my final email with my new contact information, but if you didn't, I never did. And the physical address I had for you was your parents' house." Emma closed her eyes as realization dawned. "They moved to Florida that summer. Any mail would have been returned or forwarded to me, but I was staying with Diane while looking for a permanent place. So my letters likely went into the void, but you could have called, come back." Hudson's expression grew pained. "I did come back, Emma, about 14 months after I left. I went to your parents' old house, new family living there, called mutual friends who said you'd moved on, were seeing someone new." "Jason," Emma said softly. "We dated briefly, it wasn't serious." "I didn't know that. I just knew I'd apparently lost you, so I threw myself into building the business. It was the only thing that kept me from thinking about what might have been." Emma absorbed this, a decade of hurt and misunderstanding unraveling between them. "And now you're back." "Now I'm back," he confirmed. "When Diane reached out about the reunion, I saw an opportunity. I wanted to see you again, even if just from across a crowded room." "So you became the anonymous donor to ensure the event happened." He had the grace to look embarrassed. "I might have made sure the original venue fell through so it would be moved to this hotel, where I happen to own the penthouse." "You own the penthouse, not just staying there?" "I bought it 6 months ago when I moved back. I like the view." Emma shook her head, processing the enormity of what he was telling her. "You orchestrated all of this, the venue change, the donation, even my involvement in planning, didn't you?" "I may have mentioned to Diane that you were the best event planner I knew." "Hudson, I know. I should have just called you directly, but I was afraid you'd hang up on me, or worse, be polite but distant because you'd moved on completely." He reached for her hand, then hesitated. "Have you moved on completely?" Emma looked at their nearly touching hands. "I thought I had. And now?" "Now I'm wondering if the past decade has been built on a cosmic miscommunication." Hudson finally took her hand, his touch sending the same electricity through her veins it always had. "Emma Turner, I never stopped loving you. Even when I thought you'd chosen someone else, even when I was building companies on other continents, you were always there in my thoughts." Emma felt tears threatening. "You can't just say things like that after 10 years. "Why not? It's the truth." "Because it makes it hard for me to maintain my righteous anger, which I've cultivated quite carefully." He laughed, squeezing her hand. "I've missed your sense of humor. I've missed everything about you." A tear escaped despite her efforts. "I built a life without you, Hudson, a good life." "I know. Your bakery is amazing. I've had your lemon rosemary scones." She looked at him sharply. "You've actually been to my bakery 3 times, wearing sunglasses and a hat like some ridiculous celebrity." "I just wanted to see you, even from a distance, before I got the courage to approach you properly." "That's borderline stalking." "That's devotion." Despite herself, Emma laughed, always so confident. "Not about this," he said softly. "I'm terrified you'll send me away." The vulnerability in his voice touched her. This was Hudson, her Hudson, beneath the successful businessman exterior. "I'm not sending you away," she said quietly, "but I don't know what happens next. Have dinner with me tomorrow." A real chance to talk without event planning or reunions or presentations. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Dinner, just talking. But dinner turned into breakfast the next morning after talking until dawn at a 24-hour diner. One date became daily calls and messages, which evolved into weekend getaways and eventually, 6 months later, Hudson helping Emma expand Sweet Foundations into a second location. "The contractor says we can break through this wall to expand the kitchen," Emma explained, showing Hudson the plans in her tiny office above the original bakery. "What if we expanded in another direction?" Hudson suggested, pulling out an alternative rendering. Emma studied it. "That would work better, actually. We could keep operations running during construction." "Exactly my thought." He watched her with a smile. "You're brilliant with these logistical challenges," says the man who runs international shipping routes. "Different skills, same mindset." He kissed her temple. "Speaking of logistics, I have a proposition for you." "Another business proposition?" Emma raised an eyebrow. They had developed a comfortable partnership, with Hudson providing business expertise while respecting that Sweet Foundations remained fully hers. "Not exactly business." He reached into his jacket pocket, suddenly looking as nervous as the college boy she'd first fallen in love with. "More of a personal merger." Emma's heart skipped as he revealed a small velvet box. "I lost you once due to poor communication," he said softly. "I don't intend to risk that again." He opened the box, revealing a platinum ring with a modest but exquisite diamond flanked by smaller emerald stones that matched her eyes. "Emma Turner, will you marry me?" "Not for my supposed empire or anything material I could offer, but because I want to build a life with you, one filled with the same love, laughter, and partnership we should have had these past 10 years. Emma touched the ring with trembling fingers. "I can't believe you remembered." "Remembered what? This design? I showed you a sketch once saying if I ever got married this would be my dream ring." Hudson smiled. "I remember everything about you, Em. I always have." "Yes," she whispered, tears blurring her vision. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma marveled at the journey that had brought them here. From college sweethearts to strangers to partners once more, all because she had agreed to plan a reunion party, not knowing the billionaire attending would be the one she had loved before. 1 year later, they married in the rooftop garden of the Grand Peninsula Hotel, with Diane as maid of honor. The Irving Foundation's culinary incubator program had already launched 3 successful new bakeries, and Sweet Foundations had grown to 4 locations. On their honeymoon in Greece, as they watched the sunset from a private villa, Hudson handed Emma an envelope. "I found these in storage. They never reached you." Inside were his letters, dozens of them yellowed with age but filled with love, plans, and promises. "I don't need to read them," Emma said, leaning against his chest. "You're keeping those promises now." Hudson kissed her softly. "And I always will." In the years that followed, they built the life they should have had all along. Hudson expanded Irving International while prioritizing the foundation's work. Emma created an acclaimed pastry school alongside her bakery empire. And together, they raised twin daughters who inherited their mother's baking talent and their father's entrepreneurial spirit. Every year on their anniversary, they returned to the hotel rooftop where they had found their way back to each other, marveling at how a reunion planned by chance had reunited 2 hearts that had never truly been apart.